What's going on, guys? It's Watts Locks, and I'm here to talk to you about UFC Baku, to give you my picks and my predictions. So without further ado, let's break these fights down. So starting off, we got Hamdi Abdelwahab versus Muhammad Usman. Now, you can't really have any confidence in this fight pick-wise at all. You got Hamdi, who has no cardio, but a little bit of wrestling, and you got Muhammad Usman, who has no skills at all. So either way, you cannot be confident in this, and the odds are a little far, but then if you look at Hamdi's wrestling accolades, it starts to make a little bit of sense. And considering where this fight is, if anything is to go sour, it could go his way, because this fight likely does go to a decision. But at the same time, you cannot be confident in this. This is such a low-level confidence pick in Hamdi to get it done. But I don't even want to talk about this one for that much longer because it's just not even worth it. But if I had to pick, I'll go on Hamdi by a decision. So, moving on. We got Tagir Ulanbekov versus Azat Maksum. So, I think Azat Maksum has a future in the UFC. I just don't think his time to shine is right now, especially not against a guy like Tagir. Tagir is an amazing wrestler, and he has good hands too. You know, they're a little slept on. I don't think they're that bad considering he's such a dominant wrestler and grappler. But I just don't think Maksum has anything to keep this fight competitive beyond the striking. If this goes to the ground, it's not necessarily over because Tagir does do a good job of going for positions over submissions. But at the same time, if this fight gets to the ground, even if he's just being held there, Tagir is going to dominate. Maksum really doesn't have a chance here on the ground. So, and especially what we saw from Maksum and his takedown defense against Charles Johnson, where he was taken down multiple times. I think it was twice. Against a guy like Charles, where he doesn't do that is pretty suspect. So against a guy like Tagir, this shouldn't be close. Tagir all day, every day. Very confident that Tagir gets it done. The odds obviously are pretty shot here, but you know, Tagir is a solid pick. He should be a very confident pick for everyone this weekend. Just because there's no way that Maksum, or there's no real way that Maksum has an edge in this fight to get it done. So going with Tagir, confident pick, probably decision or submission though. I could see a sub happening. So moving on, we got Irina Alekseeva versus Claudia Sygula. Both of these girls have fought Melissa Mullins, who's on this card too, and that's kind of how I'm judging and basing my pick off of this. Kind of using MMA math here, just because it's low women's MMA. You know, it's low level. It's hard to really do too much in-depth research on this with their limited tape and just the skills not great for either of them. But in this one, I'm going to go with Alekseeva just because of her performance against Mullins. You know, she really gave it to Mullins. She dropped her in round one. She made it competitive up until the end. And, you know, she put up a fight. Whereas with Sygula, the second it went to the ground, Mullins just took over. I think it was round two early in there. And, you know, Sygula just really doesn't have skills to, you could say, be in the UFC. You know, she's only 26, so maybe she makes improvements and maybe she could be in the UFC down the road. But Alekseeva, at least she's shown that, hey, I can do it. You know, I can get the job done. I can compete a little bit. Now, I forget who she submitted. I'll have to look this up. Alekseeva, who's it? Yeah, Stephanie Egger. Yeah, when she submitted her, Stephanie Egger is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So to see Irina do it was like some judo throw, takedown, and she hit a knee bar. It was a really good move she pulled, and it was pretty impressive. Honestly, I was not expecting that. And to see Irina do that against the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt gives me a lot of confidence that she should be able to do something similar to Sygula this weekend. You know, especially because Sygula, when she gets to the ground, she's having a rough time, as we saw against Mullins. So I think Irina can probably take it to the ground whenever she wants, and whether it's a knockout, submission, I could see either or happening here. I'd have to guess a submission if it goes to the ground, but at the same time, she has power on the feet. She could knock Sygula out just standing up with some punches or leg kicks. But, you know, it's hard to go one way or another. It is low level women's MMA, so it's hard to be too confident on this, especially with the minus 290 there by Irina, but I still am confident in enough. She should win this on paper. There's no reason why she shouldn't on paper. So I'll go with Alekseeva to win, and I'll say by submission. Now, moving on, we got Daria Zhelezniakova versus, versus Melissa Mullins. Definitely didn't pronounce that right, but we'll just go with Daria. Now, Melissa Mullins is good on the ground, but not so good on the feet. She has issues with her durability, and if she gets hard enough, she can and has quit before. So against a girl like Daria, who has good power and good hands when it comes to stand-up, it's going to be a contest, in their last fight, because they have fought before. Melissa was able to get the win. She got it last second in round 1 via a ground and pound. And you could argue it was an early stoppage, so it was close. So if it would have went to the second and third round, who knows how that fight could have gone? Because you saw with Mullins against Khalil, she got finished in the second round from striking. So there's a path for Daria here to land a knockout on Mullins because she can be finished. But the thing is Daria's ground game is just so bad. The second she gets to the ground, she's useless. Submitted by Alan Perez, which is not a good look considering Alan Perez doesn't submit anyone. So there's no way I can pick Daria in this fight. You have to go with Melissa Mullins because, at least she can take it to the ground. And if it goes to the ground, it's over for Daria. At least that round is. So this is kind of like the other fight too. Like this is still... The odds are a bit far, but at the same time, you look how their last fight went, it's hard to think that it doesn't go a similar way this time. The only different outcome that could happen is Daria landing a shot on the feet if she can keep it standing. But, Melissa Mullins, she's proven to be pretty decent so far, and I think she can do it again here. So, give me Melissa Mullins by a ground and pound knockout. I'd guess probably round 2, somewhere in there. So. Alrighty, next up we got Ismail Naurdiev versus Young Park. And this is another tough one. I'm not high on either of these guys. I do like Young Park as a person. I think he's a cool dude. And I think he's pretty good, he's a UFC veteran. He's seen a lot of stuff. And I don't think Naurdiev is going to be anything crazy in the UFC. This is his second run. He beat Bruno Silva, but look at him now. Bruno Silva has completely lost it. So, I don't have any confidence in Naurdiev. But then when you see Young Park in some of his recent fights, or he's had guys take him down. I forget, what was the last fight he was in? Someone took him down an ungodly amount of times. Why am I'm blanking on this right now? I think it was, Muniz. Yeah, Muniz landed, I think it was 11 or so takedowns in that fight. And I'm like, against someone like Park who's seen that before and he was not able to handle that, is a bit suspect for me, because I really want to lean Park here because I think everything leans his direction. I think he's better just about everywhere, especially with Naurdiev being cut from the UFC before. It's really hard to have any confidence in him to beat a guy like Park who's seen it all. I don't think Naurdiev's going to catch him off guard with anything. I don't think he's particularly dangerous enough to get Park out of there. So, it's tough. I know some people are split on this, and it's tough to predict, because a lot of these guys go to a decision a good amount of time, and Park's been to split decisions, and it's like in this part of the world, do you really want to get behind a guy who goes to a decision a lot? And I know Park has done well in the decisions. I think he's I think he's 5-1 or something to a decision. Yeah, I think he's 5-1 to a decision. So, if it leans his way more often than it doesn't, obviously, but at the same time, with split decisions, that's not something you want to be super confident in, especially as a minus 200 here. So, I'll pick Park. I'm avoiding this fight, really. I think he could land a submission. It's possible, but I think more than likely it goes to a decision here. I'm not huge on either of these guys, so I'm really not into Naurdiev that much. He hasn't proven hardly anything to back him. And I do like Park, but he's getting older, 34. He's not super old yet, but at the same time, I'm not that confident here. I think the odds are probably where they should be, but still not enough confidence for me to get behind either guy here, but I'll take Park by decision in this one. So, alrighty, moving on. Next up, we got, I can't say this guy's name right either, Sokyung Ko versus Oban Elliott. Now, in this one, I'm really confident in Elliott. He should do this. Now, the thing I like about Elliott is that he's young at only 27 years old, and he's had flaws with his game. But as we've seen him progress in the UFC, he's gotten better and better, and he's addressed all of these previous flaws. which shows me that one, he has a good fight IQ, and two, he really cares. He cares about his craft. He's trying to get better. He's trying to continuously improve his game, and I really like to see that because right now he's already on a good win streak. He's 3-0 in the UFC, if I believe, and he has some good wins racked up. And that last fight, the knockout against Hafez, was a really good look for him. So I just think he is on the right path. He's getting the right fights. They're not too easy, not too hard. I think the UFC is doing a really good job boosting this guy up, but not unfavorably so for other fighters. And this fight it's a little bit wide just because Ko doesn't have the experience that Oman does here. And it's tough to really see a side for Ko. I do like Ko in his last fight. He showed off some good skills, and I think he has the heart for this, which is good. I know his 2 losses are by knockout, but he really does seem to have a decent chin. I don't think he has chin issues. He was taking some haymakers in his last fight on the Contender Series. So I think he can give one to take one. And I think his boxing is decently crisp. And, he has the cardio to go all 3 rounds. So he doesn't really have any major holes in his game. But the thing that I noticed was after the first round in his Contender Series fight, he really started to change his game from standing. So he really wanted to take it to the ground. Now, that was because the Cavalcanti guy, he was definitely gassing out and getting tired. And I think Ko could see that, and he started to land more frequently with the takedowns. And due to his huge reach disadvantage in that fight. So it makes sense. But at the same time, if Oman starts to piece Ko up on the feet and starts to outland him, I don't think Ko is going to have the grappling success or the wrestling success against Elliott here. Because Elliott used to have that problem. But like I said, Elliott has improved his game over the years, and he's gotten better and better with every fight. And I think he's worked on that takedown defense a lot, and he should be able to withstand any takedowns that Ko could possibly throw his way. I mean, Ko's nickname is the Korean Mike Tyson, so this guy likes to stand and throw hands. But at the same time, Oban Elliott has really good hands too, so if he's getting outworked, he could try and shoot the takedown. You could see it happening. But I just don't think he has enough experience or skill to get it done this week. I think Ko he's 31 years old. I don't think Ko is quite there yet. I think Ko could do decently in the UFC, beating low-level guys and hanging around there. But Oban Elliott is just on a whole different career path, trajectory-wise, right now. And it's hard to write out Ko. These odds are definitely wide because I don't think Ko is bad by any means. But I just think Oban's on a whole different level right now. And this fight especially will prove it. If Oban goes on a 4-fight win streak, it'll be good for him. It'll start pushing him up. So, yeah, I'm confident in Oban Elliott this week. He should get it done. It probably goes to a decision if I were to guess. I don't think he really has the knockout power to put a guy like Ko out unless he really hits him with something crazy. I know people said the same thing about Hafez in that last fight, and Oban still put him out. So there's a possibility, but if I were to really predict it and put my pick on it, I will say Oban by decision in this one. So, moving on. Next up, we got Muhammad Naimov versus Bogdan Grad. This is another one. I did not put too much thought into this just because Bogdan Grad is one of these guys where he's just not that technical. He just goes out there and swings. He's crazy. He relies on heavy pressure, and he just has to break guys down in order to beat them. And Naimov has proven time and time again that, he's tough. He has what it takes to go the distance. He's not going to gas out right away. He's super strong. He has pressure of his own. And his flying kicks are crazy too. You see the spinning heel kicks he can do? Naimov, I'm not huge on Naimov, for the future, he might be a fade down the line. But for the time being, for against a guy like Bogdan Grad, who just relies on making it a crazy fight, I don't think Naimov's going to succumb to that. I think Naimov should win this just about anywhere this fight could go. So, I get why people are picking Grad because he just brings an element of craziness to the table that you just can't predict. But at the same time, he's been clipped for it, like his loss versus Nolan, where he got knocked out round 1. He's been caught before, and I know Bogdan has started to wind down a little bit with the antics in and out of the ring since that happened. But at the same time, I just think Naimov is on a different level, not some huge gap, but I just think Naimov is definitely the more skilled fighter here. He can last. He can go the distance for all three. He should win here. He should win. So I'll say Naimov by decision. KO could happen, but I guess it would be by a decision. So next up, we got Nazim Sadykhov versus Nicholas Motta. Now, I am all over Sadykhov this weekend. I love him here. I just think Nicholas Motta, all he has is a puncher's chance. He has power in his hands. That's about it. In the grappling, he got dominated by Trey Ogden. He should have lost there, clear as day. And whatever, it was an early stoppage. He was still getting dog work that entire fight. They should have taken it to the scorecards right then and there, and Trey Ogden would have won the first 2 rounds, clear as day. So he should have had that loss there on his record that he doesn't have, which is kind of crazy, but it is what it is. And you see him get outworked on the feet by guys like Jim Miller. He's getting knocked out by Manuel Torres. That's respectable loss. You know, he's a killer. But the way that Motta got put out by Torres was nasty. It was that elbow in the clinch. He was out cold, too. He wasn't even moving. So I just don't think Motta's all there. He's only has the power in his hands and the stand-up on the ground. He has nothing. And against a guy like Sadykhov, who's just relentless pressure, he beats guys down and he breaks you. You know, like he knocked out guys like Evan Elder, who I'm pretty high on. I really like Evan Elder. I think he's pretty good. And you could see what Sadykhov did to him. He was losing the first 2 rounds, and then boom, 3rd round, comes back, hits a huge cut above his eye. That's just the type of guy he is. He's a savage. He never gives up, never stops. He's going to keep throwing bombs until the fight's over. And against like Motta with no chin, there's no way that Sadykhov sells this. The only chance Motta has here is landing a random haymaker hook and knocking Sadykhov out. But we've seen Sadykhov has a really good chin. You know, Elder knocked him down once in their fight, and he said that was the first time he's ever been knocked down like that, and it was a flush hit. So Motta has power to knock people out, and maybe he could even knock down Sadykhov once early on. That could happen, but Sadykhov has great recovery from shots like that, as you saw against Elder. You know, he bounced right back. So I think if the same thing were to happen here, he could easily bounce back from being knocked down. And the thing is, though, Motta doesn't have that ability. So the second Sadykhov lands on Motta, it is over. He's going to get knocked out. So I'm predicting a Sadykhov knockout in this fight. I don't see it going the distance. He could get a submission win here. It's possible. It could go to a decision. It's possible. Especially, you know, Motta knows his chin is dust now. He might start trying to grapple heavy. You know, you never know what's going to happen from a guy like him who knows his chin is very compromised. But I think Sadykhov puts him out here in Azerbaijan, you know, his home, where the crowd is. They're going to be going crazy. If it's anything close, they're going to call it. So, yeah, give me a Sadykhov by knockout. Now, moving on. Next up, we got Tofik Musayev versus Mitabek Orolbai. These names are so damn hard. So I got Orolbai here. You know, I really like Orolbai's performance in his last fight. It showed how much of a dog he is. And with Tofik, there's not a whole lot behind him, you know. He has a ton of wins. His career is extensive, but it's on the lower level scenes. You saw when he went to Bellator, he got knocked out. I'm pretty sure it was Bellator. I forget. What's his name? Let me look it up. But my point with that is once he goes against the upper level competition, he starts to lose. You know, he's not as good. Sure, he could beat a bunch of different guys on the rising scene, which is still respectable, you know, not to discredit any of that. But you can see the second he starts to jump in competition, oh yeah, he beat Sydney Outlaw in Bellator, but then he got knocked out by Alexander Shabli on there. If I'm saying that right. But yeah, I watched that one through. I know there was like an illegal blow in there somewhere too. I just watched that back today. But you can just see how once the level of competition starts to ramp up, he's not going on that crazy knockout streak like he was used to. And I think with the huge layoff he's on, he's 35 years old, he's just getting called up for this one fight. It just seems like the UFC is using him for he's getting a quick payday, but they're using him as a stepping stone to boost one of their prospects up. It makes perfect sense. They're in their hometown of Azerbaijan. They need someone to step up. They got a local guy who they can just sign for one, maybe done, depending on if he wins or loses this fight. And, you know, it just seems like everything is going for Orolbai. You know, Tofik Musayev he's a striker. He wants to keep it on the feet. And Orolbai is a good grappler. He can take guys down. And he can take a beating too. It's not like he's going to get chinned here early. You know, he has the durability of a rock. So against a guy like Tofik, who's used to just knocking guys out, when he can't do that, there's probably going to be problems for him, especially at 35 years old now. I know power is one of the last things to go, but your speed starts to go down with your age. So who knows how he's going to look at 35, almost 36. So I got to go with Orolbai here. I was a little bit suspicious with the line movement because there is reverse line movement on this fight, meaning the large majority of the public and the large majority of the money on Orolbai, but the line is moving the other direction, which is a little bit suspicious because I would like to be on Orolbai around this -160, but the line is moving the other direction. Now Orolbai is like a -155, which is very interesting to me. So I need to wait until weigh-ins to see what is causing this line movement, this reverse line movement, because it's a little bit suspicious. So betting-wise, definitely waiting for weigh-ins because this whole reverse line movement is throwing me off considering the large majority is on Orolbai, bet-wise and pocket-wise, or handle-wise. But yeah, if pick-wise though, I do like Orolbai. He should win this. He should win it by submission, by decision, one of those two. Could be a knockout via ground and pound, but if I were to guess, I'd say decision or submission most likely. But betting-wise, I'm waiting on this. So moving on, we got Curtis Blaydes versus Rizvan Kuniev. Now, this one's tough because Blaydes has been clipped a bunch. His chin, you don't know how it's going to be, but Rizvan is a cheating roid head who just got kicked out of the, PFL for being on every steroid known to man. But the thing is, though, it's weird because Curtis Blaydes is the 5th ranked heavyweight in the UFC. So I'm not going to say he's the 5th best on planet Earth because you got other guys outside of the promotion. But generally speaking, he's one of the best heavyweights on the planet right now. And they're throwing Rizvan in his UFC debut against Curtis Blaydes. That has me concerned because you don't know what it means. You know, are they trying to boost Curtis Blaydes back up? Then, Tom Aspinall versus Blaydes 3? Is that something they're trying to do here and just use this Rizvan guy as a stepping stone? Because the PFL cut him. They didn't want him. And the UFC said, all right, we'll pick him up. So I'm confused. It's either that or the UFC thinks this guy's potentially really good. We'll put him against the guy we think he can chin and knock out and have this dude look incredible. Because he makes his UFC debut. He knocks out the 5th ranked heavyweight. This guy's top 15 off a debut. It's insane. So it's really hard to say which way the UFC is going with this. I don't really have a confident lean either way because it all comes down to Blaydes, in my opinion, because if Blaydes stands and strikes with Rizvan, a guy who's been exposed for using steroids, he shouldn't be on him in this fight, but you never know. Shit could happen. If he stands and strikes with him, he's going to get clipped. You know, Blaydes' chin has been tested. It's been cracked. Now, against the best of the best, but still, heavyweights, you get clipped, you get clipped. You know, some guys have better chins even at heavyweight, and Blaydes is not one of those guys anymore. And that's the thing with Blaydes, too, is he used to be a huge wrestler. He used to be wrestle dominant. And within his last 5 fights, he has shot, I think it was 1 takedown in his last 5 fights, and he hasn't landed any. And it was something like in his last 7 fights, he's only landed 3 takedowns in 7 whole fights. So Curtis Blaydes has just thrown wrestling out the door the older he's gotten. I don't know why, because his chin is paying for it. But at the same time, against a guy like Rizvan, I hope that Curtis Blaydes thinks here, locks in the game plan, saying, all right, I've been cracked before. My chin is not what it used to be. Let me do what I do best and how I used to win all my fights. Let me wrestle. So, you know, Rizvan has decent wrestling and decent clinch work against lower level guys, but you're going from lower level guys to the top 5th ranked guy in the UFC. So it's hard to say that Rizvan has the grappling or wrestling to hang with Curtis Blaydes when he's just been beating up cans, you know. So it's not all cans, you know, decent level of competition, but at the same time, he's not tested like Curtis Blaydes is. He hasn't fought Aspinalls or the Pavloviches out there or the Ngannous, you know, like he hasn't gotten near the level of competition that Blaydes has had. But for these odds, it's just so shot. Like, you can't really go Blaydes confidently because he could get clipped. But if Curtis Blaydes comes out here and wrestles for the whole 15 and dominates and looks like a minus 10,000, I would not be surprised. If Rizvan comes out here throwing haymakers, clips Blaydes, round 1 knockout for Rizvan, I wouldn't be surprised either. I think that's honestly probably the most likely outcome. Early Rizvan knockout or late Curtis Blaydes, either on the scorecards or maybe around 3 if Rizvan tires out. But it's hard to say. I don't hate, one prop I was looking at this week was Curtis Blaydes decision only, finish no action, meaning if it goes to his scorecards, then if Curtis Blaydes wins on the scorecards, it would hit. If Rizvan wins on the scorecards, that would lose. But if there's a finish at any point in the fight, it's just a void. You get your money back. I have been looking at that play. It's something crazy as like a parlay piece. It's like minus 280, I think. But I think there's good value in that because if Curtis Blaydes wrestles this entire time, I could see him getting it done. If neither of these guys knock each other out and it just comes down to a wrestling match, Blaydes should win that. I would hope to God he does. So I do like that play here as a parlay piece. But as a pick, I'll go Curtis Blaydes by decision, but very low confidence. There's a chance he gets clipped by Rizvan early. But I'm tired of picking guys that come into the UFC and they face a veteran or a guy who's well established in the UFC by some guys from some other fight promotion. I know he wasn't a champion or anything. Rizvan was just, he fought in the PFL like once, but after the Patchy mix thing, I can't pick against Blaydes here. Top 5 ranked UFC heavyweight. Give me Blaydes by decision. So moving on. Alrighty, next up we got Ignacio Bahamondes versus Rafael Fiziev. Now, in this one, I got Bahamondes, but I think these odds are very fair. It really is a coin toss of a fight because you have Fiziev, who has the experience against guys like Gaethje and Gamrot, even though he got injured. And I know Fiziev is coming off of a 3-fight losing streak, but you got to think about it. One of them was an injury, and 2 of them were against Justin Gaethje. And so you got to put some credit to those losses. But when you look at Ignacio, you can just look at the career trajectory that he's on right now. He's only 27 years old. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. You saw what he did to Jalen Turner in his last fight. And, you know, he lost to guys like Ludovic Klein, where he had a wrestling-heavy game plan. But I think Ignacio is at the point now where he's learning and he's patched up some of those holes in his game that he had earlier because he's only 27 years old. So it's tough because Fiziev, I don't think he's quite washed just yet. I mean, he's only 32 years old. Yeah, he's taken a lot of damage and he's dealt with injuries, but I don't think he's quite over the hill just yet. But that's why it's kind of hard to tell because you got a guy like Ignacio who I don't think he's hit his prime yet. You know, at only 27 years old, he's doing really well and he's improving rapidly. He's at a great gym. He's training with guys like Bilal Muhammad. So you know he's in the right direction in terms of his gym, who he's training with, you know, like that's the type of thing you want to see from a guy like Ignacio, a young, hungry prospect. So this one, it's really tough, you know. It is in Azerbaijan, where Fiziev is from, too, so if this goes to the scorecards, you should be a little nervous, you know, because this guy's a local legend there, but this one's really hard to pick. If Fiziev wins, I would not be surprised at all. I do think this goes over. If Fiziev wins, I would assume he does it on the scorecards. Bahamondes could get a finish, but I likely see this fight going over. So I'm going to pick Ignacio by decision, but this is a tough one, you know. I mean, for coin toss odds, I think there's great value on either side if you're leaning one way or the other. But for me personally, I just really like what Ignacio's doing recently, and I like the trajectory he's on. You know, he's healthy, he's young, he's getting better and better. When we see him in this next fight, it's going to be the best version we've seen of him versus with Fiziev. I think we've already seen the best of what we're going to see from him. So, but he will be locked in his home country, you know, that'll give him that extra boost of motivation for sure. But I think Ignacio is a bit more technical with that reach advantage, the height advantage. That should help him too. So I'll go with Ignacio, but low to moderate confidence on this one. It's tough to say since this is a high-level fight like this. So it's hard to say. But moving on. Next up, to finish this off, we got Jamahal Hill versus Khalil Rountree. Now, I know a lot of people are on Jamahal Hill this week. I just don't want to pick him because of his chin. Now, in terms of technical boxing, he is the better boxer than Khalil Rountree. But the thing is, his chin has just been cracked. And mentally, I don't know if he's all there anymore. You know, like after he's had the belt, he's been the champ. He's not going to have that same hunger that Khalil has to really get to the top, because at 35 years old now for Khalil, it's kind of now or never, you know. And I look at their fights with Pereira, and that's what really kind of leans me towards Khalil here, is because if you look on the scorecards, Khalil won the first 2 rounds of that fight, and he even rocked Alex Pereira. And if you look at Jamahal Hill, obviously he got Pereira messed him up early, and that leans me to think, I know it's MMA math, but it just makes sense here. You know, this is going to be a striking battle. There's not going to be any groundwork here. I assume not. You know, if anyone's going to do it, I guess Hill could, but I just don't see that happening. I see these guys standing and banging on the feet, and, you know, I just think Khalil has more oomph. You know, he's landed more knockdowns in his fights. He has more power in his hands. Jamahal Hill is more technical in terms of the striking differential, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to stop a guy like Khalil here. Now, there's a chance that Jamahal Hill could wear Khalil down over time if he survives. So I do think Khalil's best chance to win is an early knockout, where I think Jamahal Hill's best chance to win is a late finish, or it could go to his scorecards. I highly, highly doubt it. But I think Jamahal Hill's chances get better as this fight progresses. I think if it makes it to the 3rd, 4th round, I think that's where his chance to win here is. But I've just never been big on Jamahal Hill. I think mentally he's just not as dialed in anymore. You know, ever since he started to not act cocky, but he basically shot himself in the foot in terms of PR wise. And ever since then, he's just been trying to backtrack and kind of rethink his image and how he acts in public, and he's done a decent job with that, but I think mentally he's still scattered. You know, I don't think he's ever touching the belt again. I think he knows that too. I don't think he has that same drive behind him anymore. I think he's just almost coasting. And against a guy like Khalil, you know, who mentally he's been through a lot of stuff too, but I think he's hungry, you know, like he came close to beating Pereira, you know. So I know what people say, oh, well, he got absolutely worked in the 4th round, like he got really beaten up, like, and he did, you know, he was a punching bag in that last round. But at the same time, you know, if he knocked down Pereira, maybe that shot would put out Jamahal Hill, you know, because we've seen Hill put out with Blaydes. So I don't know if Hill's durability can last throughout these rounds. You know, I think Khalil should put a pretty heavy pressure on him early, and I think it should be enough to stop Jamahal Hill here. But like I said, it's hard to be super confident in either of these guys, because at the same time, Jamahal Hill is technically better than Khalil Rountree. So it's one of those things that you're going with the guy who's more technical but has the less chin, or a guy who has more power in his hands but less skill, but he has the ability to end the fight. You know, it's kind of like a pick your poison type of fight. But for me personally, and I gotta admit too, I'm a little biased on this one. I really do like Khalil Rountree as a person. You know, I think he has a cool backstory, and that has definitely swayed me a bit in this fight. But, you know, it's still, though, even besides that, I do think Khalil has the better chance of clipping Jamahal Hill. And I think if their chins go chin for chin, I think Khalil will stand up longer than Jamahal Hill will. So for that reason, I got to go with Khalil Rountree Jr. We'll take him by a round 2 knockout, but not very confident in that one. This could go either way. So, but yeah, that's been it for my UFC Baku breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, let me know in the comments for anything you guys want to see in the future. But until the next video, it is Watts Locks, and I'm out. Peace.